What are we looking at? Peter Cordamage?
What are we looking at? This is a piece called Possession. It's 11 speaker trumpets that are each 4 feet tall, and they're very directional. So they play fairly sounds that are fairly quiet when you're away from the speaker. And then if you put your ear up to a speaker, you kind of hear more specifically what that one is doing.
Yeah, when I put my ear to them, they sounded great for one thing. It was some sort of really weird directional thing, right?
Yeah, and the idea is I made this piece, I think, about 2 years ago, and so I'll have to remember exactly what it's about. The piece in general, it's trying to compare in a fairly silly way ideas of spirit possession with economic oppression, or economic oppression due to the state. It could be things like tax schemes or systems of identifying people that force people into poverty and make it so they can't participate in the economy. So it's kind of talking about feelings of hopelessness or losing control of yourself. And so on the one side, it's dominated by ideas of spirit possession, and the text that it works with comes from a number of places. A big influence for the piece is a book called Bone Dance by Emma Bull, who's a science fiction writer from the United States who isn't totally all that well known, but she writes some interesting stories that tend to be more about identity rather than about the science or an adventure story, whatever. Although they do have science and adventure in them, they tend to be more about the identity of the characters and the characters' past lives. So Bone Dance is an interesting book because it is about spirit possession, and at the same time it's kind of a post-apocalyptic tale where there's people are trying to rebuild a different type of economy, and then there's people trying to maintain the old status quo, the pre-apocalypse status quo, and so there's some contention there. So when you're away from the piece, you hear this kind of muttering of voices, and you don't know what it all is. There's all these different voices. And as you come up to it, you'll kind of hear these threads of the stories of poverty and living in the streets. And then on the other side, you'll hear the stories of spirit possession. And in between, I wrote this kind of whimsical essay comparing the two. And so you can kind of hear bits and pieces of that in the middle.
Wow. Fantastic.
I think it's a very strange piece. I haven't listened to it for 2 years since I made it, and it's interesting.
Well, the sound is not muddled at all. Although there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different sounds going on.
The voices are very clear, and that's a lot of that has to do with the directionality of the speakers. And then I actually make the sounds very specifically for these kind of speakers. Mm-hmm. So I've done a few different pieces with directional speakers, and you can actually make the sounds fit the speaker really nicely.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if I can take the camera and
get it to listen.
Look inside. Let's move over here so that we can look inside these.
The noise of rushing hills. It's a bit like drowning, and then every that state where you're underwater, you can't figure out which way is up, way into darkness. There's no surface, and the world starts to become a swirl of random shapes and colors, and the noise of rushing fills your ears.
Who's doing the reading?
Starts to slowly. It's a bit like drowning, very slowly. That state where darkness.
Glenn Seeley does most of the poverty verses, and Laurie does most of the possession voices. Glenn does a few of those, and then I actually do the essay and a couple of other incidental things. And Laurie has kind of two different voices. I recorded her and I made her retuned her voice into a different person. She's the one that's a bit scary sounding.
Okay. Fantastic piece as usual, Peter.
Thank you.